and I pray that everybody make it back home on time. I now call us to order. We will have a pledge of allegiance and a prayer, should she please, by Councilwoman Coonrod.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You move the agenda? Hit your button. Hit your button. There you go.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Mott, if you will come lead us in prayer, please.
If you would, please bow your heads. Lord, before we ask you for anything, God, I thank you for who you are, and I thank you for being sovereign within the earth. God, it is my prayer that we learn how to love one another with agape love. And God, help us to understand that this space is not just for business decision. Help us to remember those who are on the streets who have no place to live. Help us to remember the children who are living without despair in single-parent homes. Lord, help us to understand that we are supposed to respect and love one another and serve one another with kindness. Please let every leader be sensitive to the needs of the people in this time, and help us to always acknowledge you in everything that we do. For I believe that it is in your word in Matthew that says that two things hinge on the laws of the prophet, that we love God and that we love people. And in all these things I ask in the mighty name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Mott. There is no special presentations tonight, so now we will move on to the order of business for your city council. Okay, we have approval on the minutes. Can I get a second? It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have one ordinance on final reading. Madam Clerk, please read 5A.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to lift condition walkway and replace with applicant will work with the City of Chattanooga Department of Transportation to help develop a pedestrian transportation route between East Manning and Oliver Street on Tucker Street. Of ordinance number 13367, a previous case number 2018-150, more particularly described herein.
Councilman Mitchell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to apologize to the council for missing last week, but if it so pleases the council, I want to move for approval on final reading.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded on final reading. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to ordinances on first reading. Madam Clerk, let's start with 6A.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 11, Article 20, short-term vacation rental certificate in connection with an annual review.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we accept this version with the deletion of 519.
Councilman Gilbert. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now let's move on to planning items 6B. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located in the 1300 block of Mercer Street, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone and M1 manufacturing zone to RTZ residential townhouse 0 lot line zone, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Mitchell.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to know if the applicant is here and opposition is here.
Is there opposition? Is the applicant here?
Well, I
Should I
guess
give
we
a
ought to read the
presentation?
rules.
Oh, no, that's fine. Did you like a full presentation?
Yeah, can the attorney go over the rules on how we handle these planning cases?
Yes,
Sure.
this is a planning hearing here. This evening, there is an opportunity for the person that is making the request for the planning revision in this case to have 7 minutes for oral presentation and 2 minutes for rebuttal, for a total of 9 minutes on the applicant. The case is going to be presented by a member of the staff at the Office of Planning and Development first, and then spokespersons for the opposition will be granted an equal time of 9 minutes. And discussion between the council member is not to be interrupted by either the applicants or the opponents or any member of the public present. And the chairperson is to enforce those rules. Excuse me, can you hear me? All right. Couldn't hear me? I'll do it again. This is a zoning ordinance, and this is the initial reading of the zoning ordinance tonight. The case will be presented by a member of the staff of the Office of Planning and Development. Applicant will be granted 7 minutes for oral presentation plus 2 minutes for rebuttal for a total of 9 minutes. Spokespersons for the oppositions will be granted equal time of 9 minutes. And discussion between the council members is not to be interrupted by either the applicant or the opponents or by any other members of the public present in the council chambers. And the chair will strictly enforce these rules. And I guess we need to have your presentation first.
Yes. So can we get the presentation, please?
Have the screen up, please, the presentation.
Wow, so I didn't need to.
Okay, this is a request to rezone several tracts of land from R1 residential zone and M1 manufacturing zone to RT residential zone for a single-family detached development. The overall site is about 2.6 acres. As you can see here, the narrow skinny portion that you see there on the lower portion of the dashed area is zoned M1. The upper area is currently zoned, I believe it is R1. And so the request is to rezone both those tracts of land to RTZ. As you recall, there has been some history with this site. There was a request back in 2018 to do something similar. This was withdrawn by the applicant at Planning Commission. And staff had basically made the same recommendation to just rezone that skinny portion to RTZ, but to deny the request to rezone that R1 portion in the upper left-hand corner of that slide. Okay, let me go. As a reminder, there was a case back in 2018 to rezone 1100 Lupton Drive as a part of a major mixed-use development to UGC as part of a PUD development. The Hickson North River Plan was adopted in 2005, recommends low-density residential for this location. So basically, staff's recommendation, we concurred with changing the M1 portion of the property to RTZ, but not the R1. And it had to do with the lot pattern and topography in the upper portion of the property. It was not conducive to an RTZ type zone, but we were supportive of downzoning the M1 portion of the site to RTZ with some conditions. And so those conditions you see are listed here. Approved subject to single-family detached residential only. Lot frontage no smaller than 40 feet wide for each residential lot. Rear vehicular access only. No more than 2 curb cuts on Mercer Street, and pedestrian connectivity shall be provided between Mercer Street and Whitney Street. At Planning Commission, there was opposition. I think a lot of concerns had to be, I guess, against the increased density associated with the development. And so after hearing from the public, from the applicant and the staff, Planning Commission generally concurred with staff's recommendation with one exception, the lot frontage. They recommended a slightly smaller lot frontage of 35 feet as a minimum, where staff had recommended a 40-foot wide minimum. So it comes to you with a recommendation to approve with conditions in part from both staff and PC, just for that M1 portion of the request.
Okay, that concludes it?
Yes.
Okay, applicant, would you like to speak? You have 7 Yes, Councilman Mitchell.
Excuse me. Mr. Bridger, I heard at some point asked to withdraw application.
Yes, sir.
What was
That came after, as I understand, I think after PC, we received a request, formal request to withdraw,
When did that occur?
after Planning Commission.
So after Planning Commission took action, or?
After, that's my understanding, after PC took action, there was a request to withdraw. And at that point, since it's on the agenda, the only way it can come off is for you as city council to vote to accept the withdrawal.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So you have the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council. First of all, I apologize for my attire. I've been planting trees in North Shore Heights in District 2 today, per city standards and Gene Hyde. I'm Chris Anderson with Green Tech Homes. I'm representing the applicant, which is Lima Charlie Properties. And we did go through a lengthy process with the neighborhood for over a year, many meetings, many concessions, going from 30 to eventually 23 lots, and giving up a lot of public parking for the existing houses. I learned at Planning Commission, although previously told we had support from the neighborhood, that we did not. So at this point, we don't feel like we can go forward with the project as presented, and we're going to go back to the drawing board and see what we can do. So I would respectfully ask that we withdraw this case. For the record, the letter that you received from RPA after the Planning Commission makes a recommendation is to contact the city attorney as soon as possible to get it taken off the agenda. I did do that before the agenda was placed on the city council website and publicly noticed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Mitchell, hit your buzzer, please, again, sir. You have the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Chris.
Councilman?
Couple of questions, just a couple of questions. How many times has this particular piece of property begun the process of coming in front of us?
Twice to my knowledge. As far as going through the Planning Commission process, this would be the second. Now, as far as whoever owned it before, I think other people have owned it in the past, not us, who have attempted it, but I wouldn't have firsthand knowledge of that.
Okay, and what do you think is going to be accomplished by allowing a withdrawal of this? When I heard you say we'll go back to the drawing board, and what exactly do you, are you, at this time, what are your thoughts about what that means?
We have no plans for the property in terms of we may develop it, we may sell it. I have no idea. It's an investor-owned property, and I'm representing them, and I don't know what their plans are. I do know that they no longer want to pursue this particular plan.
The plan, it's not that they don't want to pursue the property, they just don't want to pursue the plan?
Unsure if they want to pursue the property or not, but they definitely don't want to pursue this plan.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to right now, I've seen a lot of the opposition is here, and we've given, even though it's not a full presentation, could we grant a couple of minutes to the opposition and then them make a statement, and I'd like to ask them thank you, Mr. Anderson. I'd like to ask them a couple of questions also.
Sure, absolutely. Opposition? You have a total of 9 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is, thank you. My name is Frank Clardy, and I'm probably one of those rare individuals that was born and raised and has remained in one family home for 70 years now. And that house is on Mercer Street, right across the street from this proposed development and the eyesore that is the former Dixie Yarns plant. We have a unique community, but a very vital community where we are involved in our community. And I fail to remember anyone that I have talked to has been in favor of that. I could be wrong, but most of the people I talk to, we are not anti-development, we're not anti-progress, but we know Green Tech's reputation in some instances precedes them, and that we know their reputation, and we don't like it, and especially of us that have lived for years on Mercer Street. Thank you for my time.
Thank you very much, sir.
Hi, my name is Patty Mitchell. I am a current homeowner on Mercer Street in Lupton City, and I also own another home also on Mercer Street. I'd like to thank the council members for allowing us to come and talk about the opposition. As Chris said, we had multiple meetings down at one of his model homes to show us what the inside of the house is. Basically, the overwhelming concern is the number of houses that is proposed. It's 17 on the Mercer Street and 6 now on the Whitney Mercer Street. And it's just too dense. And basically, the RTZ zoning is what is the biggest concern. So we took a vote after like many meetings that we had with Chris, and I've got the ballots here with the concerns of all the individuals, and the overwhelming was a vote of no, and that's what our president of our association took to the planning board back in November. I did. Yeah. So our community, just like Frank said, supports growth and it supports change. But it's just the character of Lupton City, the cottage single-style homes, with the homes that Chris and his investors are proposing. It's almost like, it's the pencil stick homes, and it's just too dense and too close as opposed to the current R1 residential homes that we have on Mercer Street today. We have many neighbors, landlords, renters here. There's about 15 of us. So we do have pride in our community, and we just respectfully ask you to, to deny the RTZ zoning.
Thank you very much. Sir?
I don't have much to add. I'm the president of the Fairfax Heights, Bagwell City, Lupton City Neighborhood Association, probably the best neighborhood association in the city. And I can't add much to what Patty and Frank have said. And I will also add that Chris is right, Mr. Anderson is right. They did work with us. But every time they work with us, I'm sure one of us or more of us told them it's too many houses. And I don't know where he got the idea that he had our support with 23 houses in such a small area. So I can't add much more than what has already been said unless you can remind me of something. Okay, thank you.
Can I, wait, Mark.
Yes,
Can I ask a
please.
question?
Yes.
Mark, just in a short summary, do you feel that with some more planning and some potential rearrangement of what they'd like to see done there, and of course, I'm not trying to get into their business because they have a business model they have to follow to make something work, but you're not against development there is what I'm hearing, I think, but you'd like to see less density there.
That is absolutely correct. And we're scared of RTZ. I don't know if he can make money if it's R1, but I'm afraid that's what we want, or with conditions or something.
Okay.
But if we get it changed to RTZ tonight and they sell the property, we don't know what's going to go there. Plus, we still got all the adverse problems we've had since 2012 with the Lupton City Mill site demolition and the asbestos, and then the Riverton development over there behind us. Lupton City has gone through hell for the last 7 years.
All right, I would agree with you. Thank you, Mr. Mullins.
Okay, well, we need, the applicant can have his
Yeah,
2 minutes
rebuttal.
rebuttal. So If you'd like to speak, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you again, Chairman. Councilman Mitchell. I will state that we do not have plans to sell the property. It is a possibility, but at this point, I would rather have a withdrawal so we have the flexibility to bring something back in less than 9 months that maybe the neighborhood can live with. A withdrawal grants us that. A denial does not. It just delays it. I feel the pain of the residents over the Lupton City Mill site. We actually are also very negatively impacted by that site and the stumbling upon more asbestos than we knew about. And I know, Councilman Mitchell, from my working with you, that you've been working on this for many years now and are as frustrated as the residents are. So I would just respectfully restate that we withdraw the application.
Mr. Chair, I've still got some hope for some good faith here. I was trying to decide whether to make a motion on the temporary withdrawal or just denial. But I think I'm going to try to show a little benefit of the doubt and move for allowing the withdrawal. That's a motion.
Okay, we have a motion to withdraw, and we have a second by Councilman Smith. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Item is withdrawn.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Councilman Mitchell. Okay. Okay, Madam Clerk, let's proceed to 6C.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located at 601 and 603 Airport Road, more particularly described herein from R3 residential zone and R4 special zone to M2 light industrial zone.
Is the applicant present? Is there opposition? Councilman Gilbert?
Can she read the alternate version?
Absolutely. Maybe John, can we read the alternate version of this particular item?
This would be approving M3, not M2, and it'd be M3 subject to 6 conditions: a single building with 3 separate units; 2, type A screening where the property abuts R1 zoning; 3, the buildings to include up to 2 roll-up doors and to include windows in the office units; 4, to comply with the airport overlay district requirements; 5, dumpster service during work hours only; and 6, limited to 1 drive only on Pinehurst and 1 drive on Airport Road.
Thank you, John. We spoke with the applicant, and I think they're on agreement. I approve.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded by Councilman Byrd. Any questions on this item? All in favor by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, let's read 6D.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 3951 Cromwell Road, more particularly described herein from R1 residential zone to R4 special zone.
Is there opposition here? Is the applicant present? What's your pleasure?
John.
You'd like to hear a presentation?
Not necessarily a presentation, but John, can you read the alternate version on this for conditions?
Sure. It's approving R4, just having 2 conditions, to be single-family and/or office use only.
Applicant? Ma'am? No, ma'am. One thing we did, we had 2 conditions to your request.
Be single-family, residential, or office use only.
Ma'am, could you come up, please? You still on where?
Let me progress it. Although it doesn't, but it does not, this won't show the current conditions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll show the property. That is the property right there, I believe. That's it. Cromwell Road? Yeah.
renovated the inside to be office space. I would like to put an additional building behind it, a small building, because there's not enough space in the office area, but that's, I don't know if your stipulations now will prevent that from happening.
John, come up.
John, yeah.
Because what we done, we just based on what your site plan, what you gave to us, and we was gonna restrict it to the site plan. So you're saying something different than the site plan?
No, I think that I drew a building behind the existing building.
That's what we received.
No, it's not there. Well,
So, but your use is, you said it was
right.
office and residential.
not office and residence and not retail, but I'd like to have an additional building in the future.
You could do that as long as it's office and residential.
Okay.
This wouldn't change that.
Okay. I move to approve of the conditions.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded with conditions. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposed is nay. Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am. Madam Clerk, let's read 6E, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 2163 West Shepherd Road, more particularly described herein, from R2 residential zone to RTZ residential townhouse 0 lot line zone, subject to certain conditions.
Is there opposition present? Is the applicant present? Applicant? Councilwoman Burris.
Mr.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, it shows
All
you
right.
being active.
Okay. I'm not sure where the applicant is. I know the Shepherd community, which has been very supportive, and it's a very special community, is here. Have you heard anything, John, about the applicant?
I've not heard now.
Let's do this. I don't want to leave it hanging. Would you make a presentation, please?
Sure. I got the screen up. This is a request to rezone a site from R2 to RTZ to accommodate a single-family residential development. It's located in the West Shepherd community on West Shepherd Road. Again, this shows you the existing zoning patterns in the area. You have most of the street on this side is zoned R2. There has been no recent zoning history for the site. There was a request just north of here to go from R2 to R4, but both staff and Planning Commission recommended to deny. Okay. Just to give some nuance, the difference in the zones, R2 residential lets you do single family and two family. RTZ is really meant for small lot, single family and townhomes. The density is a little different. In the R2, you can max your density out basically around 18 dwelling units per acre. RTZ gets a little higher, where you can actually get up to 24 dwelling units per acre. So looking at the plan, the Shalford Road Lee Highway Plan recommended low density residential at this location. And there was a zoning policy adopted in 1987 that recommended maintaining the R2 zoning along this section of road. Looking at the plan policy, the existing development pattern of the area, staff recommended to deny. At Planning Commission, there was no opposition. Planning Commission actually found the proposed use to be compatible with the land uses in the sense that the density is not that much greater than what R2 would allow. They did put a recommended density cap of 18 lots to ensure that that density didn't get up into the 20s. So that was per the site plan that was submitted. So Planning Commission recommended approve with that condition, limited to no more than 18 lots.
Okay. And for the record, it was approved.
And that's the site plan.
Yeah, good. That's the site plan. Malcolm, Mr. Walker, have you seen this site plan?
Yes, I have.
You want to come up? Come on up. So go ahead and introduce yourself
All
for the
right,
record.
I'm Malcolm Walker, and I'm president of the Shepherd Community Council. I have seen the site plan. I have had a conversation with the property owners, and those of us from the Shepherd community heard a presentation by them, and the majority of us took a vote, and we agreed that their proposal would be an enhancement to the community. We think that it would be a boost for our community because of the quality of homes proposed. They're to cost between $230,000 and $250,000. So that would be a plus, we think, for Shepherd.
Okay, so I think the best thing to do so that you all don't have to come back, does anyone have any questions of him? The only thing we ran across was, I like attaching a site plan to approval so that people can't change it at the last minute and build something that a neighborhood wasn't expecting. However, we can't approve this site plan because it only shows a 40-foot right-of-way, and the city will need a 50-foot right-of-way. We've not discussed this with the applicant. So I have on the record that this is something you want to happen.
All right.
What I'm going to do is defer it for a week and have RPA see if he wants to go forward. But at least you don't have to come back next week. Unless you want to, we'd love to have you. And so we'll have everything we need on the record. Do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. All the people from Shepherd, raise your hand. Really neat people. Thanks so much for being here. And thank you, Mr. Walker, very much. John, can we talk with the applicant?
Sure, I'll
and
reach
find-
out to them. I'll try to
Find
communicate.
out what the deal is. And then we'll bring it up again, and you might explain about the difference between the 40 and the 50 feet.
So you might, if it's okay, to make sure they get with, I think you mentioned get with LDO to make sure this site plan actually meets city standards.
I'm good with that. I'm good with
They
that.
might need 2 weeks for that, because I know there's Tuesdays and Thursdays when they have their pre-submittal meeting.
Our next week is our last meeting.
Yeah.
We could put it in the first Tuesday, defer it till the first Tuesday in January.
I think that would be, I'd recommend it, because I don't know how quickly they can get in front of LDO to have
Okay.
them look at this.
Okay. All right. Mr. Chair, I move that we defer it till the first Tuesday in January. And, wait a minute.
And that will be
No, it's not the first Tuesday in January. We're not coming back
Till
till
the 7th.
Yeah, the second one, till the 7th. I
Okay.
move that we defer it till January 7th, please.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Item is deferred until January the 7th. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read 6F?
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 9124 Amos Road, more particularly described herein from R4 Special Zone to C2 Convenience Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Is there opposition present? Is the applicant present? Yes, sir. Okay. Would you like a presentation? No, I don't need a presentation. Okay. Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Next item, Madam Clerk, 6G. At this time, I will be turning the gavel over to Vice Chairman Henderson so I can handle this myself.
All right, Madam Clerk, if you would, let's read item 6G, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone properties located in the 900 through 1200 blocks of Riverfront Parkway, more particularly described herein from M1 manufacturing zone to BPK, the Bend Parks and Open Space Zone, BCX 12, the Bend Commercial Mixed Use Zone, and BCX 20, the Bend Commercial Mixed Use Zone.
Is the applicant present? Is there any opposition present? Councilman, would you like a presentation?
I would like the presentation, please.
Sure, I'll be
Mr.
short
Bridger?
since I know I gave a full presentation at your last committee meeting. And just there's two items that relate to this property. The first is a zoning map amendment, and the second is a zoning text amendment. This is, again, a request for a redevelopment project for the Awesome site, major redevelopment project representing over 100 acres of mixed-use urban development that's proposed for this site. What they're asking to do is basically establish a new context and zones. And as a reminder, we adopted this tool back in October to give the opportunity for large sites to establish their own context, and it provides some basic guidelines for how that's done, which I've noted there. And again, I covered that last week, so I won't go over that in detail. So basically what they'll be doing is adding the Bend, and this is that was submitted by the applicant, a base zone of BCX 12, with a small area that's for BCX 20 and a area designated for BPK, which means park. So that, again, the numbers represent the maximum number of stories. So I'm going to jump to staff's review of this. Again, I've covered all this already last week. So essentially, when staff looked at the request, clearly it was supported by planning policy in terms of urban development form, the mix of uses. It made sense that that was the right tool, the form-based code context. Our only concerns had to do with the maximum heights proposed that was originally requested, the 12 and 20. And that's just based on looking at, again, what has been done with the downtown. Currently, form-based code in downtown has a maximum height of 12 stories. And also giving thought to the context around the site, making sure that there's adequate transition between the development of this site and adjacent developments that surround it. So based on those concerns, staff recommended deferral of 30 days to follow up with the applicant on those heights. At Planning Commission, there was no opposition. Planning Commission did recommend approval. We did receive comments that relate to, as afterwards from Planning Commission, to kind of look at the height issue, and that could be worked out essentially between Planning Commission and City Council. So that is all we've got so far. I mentioned before we received something from the applicant with a proposed alternative, but I'm going to turn over to the council if they want to provide further comment at this point. That's all we have on our staff end.
I think at this time, we'd like to hear from the applicant.
Sure.
You would have 7 minutes.
Good evening, council members. Good to see you again. My name is Victor Dover, representing the West End Partners. I'm a town planner with Dover, Cole and Partners. And for the record, a fellow of the American Institute of Certified Planners. I have a short presentation here just to summarize what we think the project's about. I'm glad to have a chance to show it to you. Our mission here is pretty unique. This location is really about bringing the land back online as a productive part of the region at the region's economic core. And to do that in a mixed-use development pattern. Now, that's already started, as you probably know, because a couple years ago there were only 3 jobs on the whole of the site, and now there are 330 jobs. But to take that to the next level, we need to rezone, and that's why I show you this before and after picture, the existing sheds from the old combustion engineering plant, and the after picture of what's imagined to grow in its place. And so the rezoning is going to enable that to happen. That's in order to allow the companies and lifestyles you hope to attract. If you want to attract someone who's not there now, you need to build the thing that will attract them, and that's what this rezoning is for. Now, the site is, it speaks to us and tells us this is the most important place you could do something like this. It's the undertaking we've shown you is set to unfold in the most beneficial location you can imagine anywhere in the region, right at the center. That's where the infrastructure already exists, and we can connect to it. And it's where it'll help the other neighborhoods around it. That'll open up the city to the riverfront. It'll peel back a lot of that asphalt you saw in the aerial photograph, among many other environmental benefits. Now, Just a brief aside, why we think this could be successful here. Some of you know, we've seen it happen here before. 22 years ago, my business partner, Joe Cole, and I planned the revitalization of the South Side neighborhoods. And we got to watch that happen. It's been quite the dramatic before and after picture, as you know. A national story, really, about healing a neighborhood, watching the lights turn back on in an urban area and watching it come back to life. So I'd like to take just a minute and show you the essence of the proposed vision for the Bend. There we go. The four big ideas here, I'll just highlight four of them because they're the ones that focus most on quality of life. The first one of those is that it's interconnected. It'll have an open web of streets. Some of you have seen some of these pictures that illustrate the computer model we built. We built an elaborate, big 3D model of this site to study it as a design tool. And so looking at it from many angles, and as we did that, we made these animations to help make it more vivid. But this will mean it'll have many paths, support all kinds of transportation. It'll also allow for connecting in another way, which is connecting people to the river. You know, this site has been cut off from the city for 150 years. And now it'll be opened up. It'll be a place where you can get to the river. It'll also be the kind of place where you're likely to be able to get to know your neighbors. This is one of the row house streets in the development. And walkable streets are among those characteristics too. I mean, walkable streets, when we say that, we mean more than just providing sidewalks and street trees. What we're talking about is creating destinations you'll actually want to reach by walking or biking. And then the last part of making it connected is to fine-tune the architecture, get the building to street relationships that invite walking. This is why the form-based code is a natural tool to use for the zoning. Allows for incremental development. That's very flexible, lets you adapt to changing markets. And it's the normal way of creating variety and texture that traditional urban neighborhoods have. It also allows us to create generous public spaces, including the streets, but also parks and squares. And that's a key reason why we need the rezoning. The compactness is part of using some of the land really well so that other parts of the land can be wide, generous, green, open spaces. And this picture kind of shows both of those. Where there's development, the development is intense, so that other places we can open it up and make parks and open spaces. So a couple final thoughts about why this is good for Chattanooga. There are a lot of reasons, but here are just some obvious ones. It's a chance to relink a unique part of the city to its surroundings. It's at the core of the metropolis, but it's also adjacent to downtown and the South Side and Cameron Harbor and College Hill and the river. In the process of doing this, I think you'll get a new kind of address. You get employers and investment that you want, creativity, new economy, inventiveness to root here. And then last, it's another national story of urban regeneration and innovation. I think people are going to come see what you've done here. On the request for zoning, it's very simple. We propose to change to the form-based code. We are proposing to do that because the existing code doesn't allow for what's seen in the vision. It just means adding new techniques, including some new street cross sections and parking policies and what have you. Now, this is the map that was originally submitted in the applicant package, and I'll show you the other map that John did, and I'm just going to toggle them back and forth. But the first map had one very small area, just a little over 3 acres for 20 stories maximum, and then most of the rest for 12 stories maximum. The new map was worked out in response to a request from the mayor and the RPA staff, as John described. They had the idea that it would be good to use lower heights. So here in the new map, the 20 became 16 stories. The 12 stories became 10, except for the part that's closest to Riverfront Parkway, which you see in that kind of wine-colored band, at 5 stories. So that's an idea that the applicant has agreed to, and in the interest of working it out with the staff.
All right. We do have one lot, Councilman Oglesby.
Yes, so, okay, you just showed me a variation of what was originally presented and approved for 16 and 10. Is your desire to modify it to this, or is the other one the preference?
Well, of course, we were very happy with what we originally submitted, and stand by that as a good concept if that's what you should choose to approve. Of course, that was the recommendation of the Planning Commission. But we also are sensitive to the issues that the staff raised, and in the interest of showing flexibility and working it out, we produced the map you see here to illustrate another alternative. We'd also be happy with that. So, Councilmember, we'd be happy to leave with either map tonight.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions?
Yeah, go ahead. Councilman Ledford.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to yield.
Hmm?
I'm going to hold off.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Councilman Oglesby?
Okay,
Hit you.
This is a phenomenal project, and I've been in support of it from the very beginning as was originally presented. I know at the Planning Commission meeting, everybody was really excited about what was presented, and I know different individuals that I've spoke to like the concept. This is a transformational project that can really do a lot to enhance the quality of life and the economic sustainability of our community. And I just can't say enough about how much I appreciate the investment, because this is something for Chattanooga, about Chattanoogas, by Chattanoogans. So my preference is to go with the original version as presented to the Planning Commission. So that is my motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for the original version. Councilman Ledford? Second. We have a second. Any questions? All right. All in favor of Councilman Oglesby's motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion is approved as made. At this time, I'll turn the chair back over to Councilman Oglesby.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, please read 6H.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, Article 2, definitions, Article 16, downtown form-based code, Division 1, introductory provisions, Section 38-692, legal requirements, Section 38-693, context areas, Section 38-694, zone, Division 3, rules for all zones, Section 38-697, lot types, and to add new context areas, Division 14, the bin.
Wait a minute. Did we read H? Which one?
That was H.
H? Yeah, it was H. Okay,
good.
Yeah. Okay, we have H. What's the pleasure of council? Okay.
Mr. Chair, once again, this is in your district, but with no objection, I move for approval.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Let's move on to I, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone part of a property located at 1605 East 12th Street, more particularly described herein from R4 Special Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Bridger. Thank you. Is the applicant here? Yes, they are. And any
Is there
opposition?
opposition? Yeah.
No. Okay, thank you. Mr. Bridger, could you read the alternate version with the conditions that we put on?
Sure. Just 1 minute, please.
there, all right. That's not right, wait, I'm sorry, just 1 second. I know it's attached to the site plan, I'm just trying to pull it up 1 second.
All right.
Give me a minute, here we go. Okay, this will be approving UG subject to the following conditions, which there be 5. 1, residential uses only. 2, provide off-street parking for all units. 3, revise setbacks to better conform to residential character of the existing neighborhood as follows. West boundary 5 feet, south boundary 10 feet, east boundary 10 feet, north boundary 10 feet, maximum height of 35 feet, and 5, subject to the attached site plan. Phil, one thing I didn't see here, I think we had mentioned about, there's some language about, it's generally noted in the site plan, as long as the buildings don't move by more than 5 feet.
Okay.
That should be in there, but it essentially attaches the site plan with that caveat that the buildings would be as generally shown, as long as they're not moved by more than 5 feet. I do know that the applicant has some comments on the conditions, so we might want to hear from him.
Okay, sir?
So the intent with this project is to do a residential project within the community. The only tool we had available to us was UGC, hence the UGC with residential-only restrictions and setbacks and height restrictions to tie us to the character of a residential neighborhood. My concern is with attaching the site plan.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to be clear how that should be interpreted by the Land Development Office. If I need to move a building 2 feet or widen it by a foot, it's not clear whether or not that needs to come back before Planning Commission or Council. And if the use should change but still be consistent with residential use, we have to come back before Council.
Thank you for that comment. Mr. John, when we attach the site plan information with everything that, did you give him some wiggle room with that language to make sure that if he needed to move it 1 foot or 2?
It would be 5 feet. Only question, I think what the applicant is getting at is, let me go back to the site plan here. That's his forest. Here we go. There it is. So depending on, and I guess this is where the applicant can speak to what could potentially change. The way we had suggested as written is that any of those structures could move, as long as they didn't move more than 5 feet, it was considered generally appropriate. And so I guess what the applicant may need to talk about is how that would or would not work with this potential future build-out.
I see other possible unintended consequences. Some of these buildings are detached, some are attached. What if I attach 4 and not 2? I haven't actually designed the project yet.
That's one of the issues a lot of times that this council had problems with it. Right here. Got yours.
There you go.
Right, that when it's presented to the community and they see these site plans and these are the things that they agree with, and we work for the community. So it's like, hey, this is something that was presented and the community saw this site plan and they're telling me, Councilman, we do agree with this site plan with the conditions that Mr. John spoke of. But once you start to modify and make different changes, then they start to see their things change. So do you want, I would agree with the community to move to approve this with these conditions, definitely giving you that wiggle room of that 5 feet if you need it, if it came about, to stay within these perimeters. I don't know when you start talking about, well, maybe we want to move 2 buildings, or we may want to combine 3 buildings, or this of that nature, and it starts to deviate even more from the site plan, the community.
I just want to make sure we have that degree of flexibility.
John?
I think the 5 feet works as long as you don't change the mix of uses and the locations. I think when you start, like you said, let's say on the far left-hand side, he's got 5 units shown. Let's say that goes to 6 or something. That would be, I would assume would be a major change, have to come back before
Right.
council. So so I guess one option is, and just throwing ideas out here, is to give the applicant time to crystallize more what they want to do, to defer,
Yeah.
kind of similar to what Councilwoman Burr said, for a month, to see if there's something more affirmative.
Okay.
The other option I would throw out there is to put a cap on the number of units, so that way you know exactly that the number of units is not going to exceed X amount,
Right.
as a way of managing impact. You could also, if you're trying to get some more predictability in terms of how many, because you do have several portions of this site, the way I read this, you got sort of a west side, a middle, and an east. And I'm just throwing an idea in terms of trying to have some predictability of knowing what, so let's say on the west side portion of property, to be no more than X number of units. On the east side, sure, I'm getting at, so there's some predictability in
Right.
terms of future build out.
I think in talking with the community, who I'm speaking for at this time, that's who I speak for them. So in talking with them, they agreed with this site plan, and they also was in agreement with the conditions that we put on. And if we're gonna change anything, if we're not in agreement with that, I would, at this time, not approve but defer, and give you some time to create a better site plan.
If, with the flexibility to move buildings up to 5 feet, we'll see what we can do.
So you okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you, sir, so much. And being with that, I would like to approve with conditions, move to approve with conditions.
And just note for the record, adding that provision for 5 feet flexibility.
Yeah, I've been listening as you've been talking here in connection with this, and the amendment I would suggest, at least as to number 5, if you want to do that, subject to, as generally shown on the attached site plan, or within 5 feet for building placement, and they have a total of 25 units without further action of the city council.
Let me clarify one thing there. The middle building is not part of this proposal tonight. We're only looking at the west parcel and the northeast parcel. That's all that's being rezoned. The middle portion is an existing building, and it's not being rezoned.
So that would be a total of 16 units then?
Correct.
Okay.
Hit your button.
There we go. All right, so we're clear, we got that in the record.
Yes, sir, I've got that at least written down, if that's something that you would want to consider based upon John's recommendation.
Yes, I'm good with that. You good, John?
Yes.
All right, so with that, move to approve with conditions.
Okay, it's been moved to approve with conditions. It's been properly seconded. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, we have Councilman Ledford and then Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out this would be a good time to remind, Mr. Bridger, are you still here?
Yes, sir.
Be a good time for us to just remind the conversation that we're going to be having about site plans
Sure.
and zoning ordinances. And
Yes, we will be, according with the chair, to set up a education session sometime in January at the appropriate time, at probably strategic planning and zoning, to kind of go over site plans as it relates to zoning code, zoning
Okay,
ordinances.
we'll get that scheduled shortly after the first of the year.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have absolutely no idea what I'd be voting on, so I hope the councilman will understand if I abstain.
Okay. So it's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposes?
Abstain.
And one abstention. Okay. Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move down to J.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning
Okay,
ordinance,
so let you know.
so as to rezone part of a property located at 3630 Ridgeside Drive, more particularly described herein from C5 Neighborhood Commercial Zone to C2 Convenience Commercial Zone.
Is there opposition present? Is the applicant present? Okay, could you?
Yes, sir.
Like a presentation, madam? Okay.
Again, this is located in the North Brainerd community. This request is zoned from C5 to C2, basically to allow an existing convenience store to be able to sell beer. The property is located at 3630 Ridgeside Drive. It's a pretty small lot. It's currently zoned C5, as I mentioned before. It was rezoned in 2009 to C5 with 7 conditions, which you see listed there. I won't go over those in detail, but that was part of the request to operate a store there. There was a request to rezone to C2 in 2016. That was denied to rezone to C2. The C5 commercial zone, as you see listed on the left, allows small commercial uses, grocery stores, barber shops. Does not allow any consumption or sale of alcoholic beverages. Again, at the plan, the North Brainerd Community Plan recommended single-family residential for this location. So staff in looking at it, again, we're just looking at it from a plan recommendations and the appropriateness of the zone for the location. So based looking at those factors, we recommended to deny. There was opposition present at the Planning Commission meeting, and after hearing from, and I would say there's also support. There's both residents speaking for the project and against it. After hearing comments from the public, both for and against, as well as comments from the applicant, Planning Commission also recommended to deny the request. Since that meeting, I know there's, I don't know if you want me to carry on as far as looking at trying to balance the variety of community needs and allow for a store to operate. I was asked to, and I think it's part of the alternative ordinance you see on your agenda, to craft some conditions that might go with the C2 that would further be sure to limit the extent to what could be done in a C2 zone. And I'll just cover those briefly, just so you're aware of those before you hear from the rest, folks. Give me 1 second. And those conditions are, if again, that's an alternative version, would be uses limited to convenience store and related beer and alcohol sales for off-site consumption only, retention of the existing building, no beer or alcohol sales permitted after 9 p.m., no detached or pole-mounted signs permitted, and dumpster pickup shall be limited to the hours between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. So that's something also for council's consideration. So I'll turn it over to the public.
Okay, as the applicant, you have 7 minutes to state your case. So you have the mic.
How you doing? My name is Sean Daniels, president of the Menlo Park Neighborhood Association and operator and owner of Menlo Park Neighborhood Grocery Store. I'm here to petition C2 zoning for the Menlo Park store in order to stay in business. There's nothing illegal about the store. According to the zoning commission, you have to be 200 feet away from a school or church front door to front door. And the closest thing to it is the children's home. And I'm actually 600 plus feet from the first house on the children's home property and 1,000 feet from the actual front door of the children's home to my store. And I have the paperwork right here to show. To add to that, I have a petition signed by several residents that frequent the store, 279 to be exact. I want to pass this one around too as well to show that the neighborhood is in support. All right. Just to talk about some positives since I've been running the store and since I've been president of the Menlo Park Neighborhood Association. We as a community have done Menlo Park membership drives, say the youth tour membership drives, voters registration drives, a national night out has been there several years, neighborhood cleanup day, Menlo Park sign toppers have been in place, the Menlo Park markers, t-shirts, banners, Halloween giveaway, a stronger neighborhood grant to higher trouble youth has been granted. A back-to-school bash. The Menlo Park neighborhood block party has also gone on since I've been with the Menlo Park Neighborhood Association, which I do have the flyers for that right there. I also support other African-American businesses as well. Dee's Egg Rolls, Fast Lane Lemonade, Choo Choo Ice, and A Touch of Soul. A couple of businesses that I do support through the Menlo Park Neighborhood grocery store. Due to the weather, several of the members could not make it. They're elderly and they've been sick here lately. So I would read the letter myself from Mr. James Cunningham. To whom it may concern, we are writing this reference letter on behalf of Mr. Sean Daniels, owner and operator of the Menlo Park Grocery, located at 3630 Ridgeside Road, Chattanooga, Tennessee 37411. We understand that he is applying for a C2 license at this business location. We are in full support of this move. Many of the residents are seniors, and a store within close proximity would afford them easy access to grocery and other items. We applaud Sean for recognizing the need for a neighborhood store that will serve its residents of all ages. As residents of the Menlo Park neighborhood, we have lived down the street from Sean and his family for more than 40 years. In that time, Sean has been an involved and productive member of the community, as evidenced by him assuming the presidency of the Menlo Park Neighborhood Association. Sean lives in the neighborhood, knows families in the neighborhood, and has friends in the neighborhood, and cares about the neighborhood. This is James Cunningham and his wife. And there's a couple other letters here from Menlo Park and other people in the community. So I say that to say that it has been a positive in the neighborhood. I've also fed homeless people. It's also been a liaison for battered women who's come to the store looking for safety. I've had runaways come to the store looking for safety, and I got them to the right authorities. And I just feel like I deserve a chance. I feel like I'm responsible enough to take on this C2 zoning and continue to serve my community.
Thank you. Let me see, there's another 2 minutes and 25 seconds if somebody else would like to speak in your behalf. While we're doing that, did you have something you want to say? You want to wait till at the...
I'll wait.
Okay, sure. Yeah, please.
Mr. Chairman, council members, audience that are here this evening, just like to take this opportunity to let everyone know that I've been in this community probably since I was about 11 years old. Off and on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm
please.
sorry. John P. Franklin Jr., address 4007 Midland Pike. Thank you, Councilman Mitchell. But at any rate, the Daniels family I've known, all of my life, and certainly Sean is probably third generation, but his family are really, really good people, and they've lived in this neighborhood for many, many years. And this particular store has been there probably since 1969, at least as long as I've been there. But at any rate, it's always served, and I think the reason why they don't have any small consumption of beer in the store now is because when they changed ownership, the 150 days period had elapsed, and so they never were, the store was never able to get, never ever able to get it back. And so Sean has always been a responsible person, and I think deserves the opportunity to try to sustain this business. And the amount of consumption or sales of beer and that type of thing is so small that it's minuscule that it really wouldn't have a significant impact on the neighborhood, I think. Looked at a couple other stores in the area. There's an H&H grocery store, which is in the Eastdale area at the corner of Through Street and Greenwood Road, or Mall Street, one of the two. And it's been there for at least that long, and it has offers the same amenities. Eggs, bacon, chips, candies and different things like that, soft drinks, and a small refrigerator for beer. the sale of a little bit of beer would probably be just enough to allow him to stay in business. And as you heard, there are many, many activities, positive activities that have gone on at that particular location that are community-based, and certainly has not been a hindrance to any of the residents there that I know of. But if given the opportunity, I think Sean would be a good steward of his property and the small business that he tries to maintain. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Ledford, would you like to say something?
Yes, sir, thank you. I had a couple of questions for Mr. Daniel. At Planning Commission, you had mentioned that there are stores that sell beer nearby that are pretty close, like a block away or 2 blocks away,
Yes, 2, 3
that we're
blocks
allowed
away.
to? Okay.
Yes.
The other question I had was, this property used to sell beer at one time?
Yes, for, it was C2 zone for like 30 to 40 years.
30
yes.
to 40 years?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And then my next question is for the city attorney. Is there a beer, this is going to be far out, that's what I do. Is there a beer stock limit based on the square footage of a building that they're allowed to carry?
I do not believe so, no, sir.
And does that question make sense?
As to the amount of alcohol that you can have stocked there, I
Sure.
think it's an issue of whether you have a beer permit, first off, on here, as to your license, and I was not ready for that question this evening. I'll be glad to look it up.
I try to get you every now and then.
Yes, sir.
That's twice today, I think. Sorry about that.
I'm trying, yes, sir.
Okay. The reason I'm asking that is because C5 is a great use for this property in the neighborhood, but I also understand about running a business. I run one myself, so I get it. When you need to find something to further make it successful, I get it, because I'm changing my model all the time and have for 21 years. So I feel you there. I'm just trying to figure out a way to help the neighborhood feel more comfortable instead of letting just stockpiles and you know, whole building full of beer. I'm just wondering if there's a way that we could put a condition in that really kind of soften that blow, but still allows you to obtain your goals. So that's really just a side comment. I don't know how we address it. I was hoping Phil would have all the magic answers for me there, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Phil. I yield,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now, would the opposition like to speak? You have a total of 9 minutes. Okay.
Hello, good evening. My name is Crystal Smith, and I live as a resident at 617 Midland Pike. I've been there for over 37-plus years. Let me say this, we're here for opposition. And it is city record, but about probably 28 years ago, maybe 25, 28 years ago, the community, as well as the support of the Chattanooga Police Department and the city, took the C2 zoning out because of oversaturation as well as crime on that block. Okay? So that's how the C2 zoning technically got out of the community. And we did that because it was causing problems, it was devaluing the property, and disturbance in the community. I'm here representing the North Brandon community homeowners. I live close proximity, we live close proximity to the store. I am the president of Biltmore Community Association, District 9. I sent a letter of opposition to you all for the application request to rezone Menlo Grocery Store from C5 to C2 for beer sales. Now, you all showed on the map what C2 also brings if you allow this permit to happen. So we're here in objection for the C2 zoning totally. Okay? community is a very quiet community of senior citizens and multi-generational families for more than 50 years. We are asking the council members for the 4th time to deny the request to zone our community from C5 to C2 for beer sales. Zoning to C2 in the midst of a residential area serves no value at all to our community. Our opposition is based on the following reasons. Beer sales in our immediate community unnecessary because a multitude of establishments that are available on Brainerd Road, Wilcox Boulevard, Tunnel Boulevard, and Shalford Road. These establishments already sell beer, and those businesses are in a commercial zone and are not a residential area. It will attract teens to purchase beer. It is close proximity to the youth service facility that serve as a safe haven for our youth, Chambers Center, and transitional homes for young adults. It is a safety hazard to community pedestrian traffic, increased criminal activity in our community, inadequate parking available for prospective patrons. It would definitely devalue our property. Also, it would increase homeowner insurance. We implore you to hear and to listen to the voices of our community members, because we are the families that will be most impacted by beer sales at Menlo Grocery and Restaurant. Ridgeside Road, Gillespie Road, Biltmore, Midland Pike, Woods Drive, and Phoenix Avenue are close proximity to the store. Also, I have the members on that is close proximity to the store, the homeowners, not rentals, close proximity to the store that's opposing the beer sales, as well as totally opposing the C2 that comes with the beer sales. Thank you.
Hello, Council. I'm Katie Harbison, representing the Chambliss Center for Children. I'm just going to pass what I'm reading so that you all have the citations for the data. I'm going to read this just so I can be quick, because I know we have a lot of people who want to speak in opposition. Chambliss Center for Children provides services to over 300 children on our 17-acre campus in Brainerd, and approximately 200 families come in and out of our entrance every day. You can actually see it at the top of that map. We have been in the community since 1872, and at our current location there since 1939. We've always had a great relationship with our neighborhood and have tried to be a positive influence in our community by helping out whenever asked and by supporting the efforts of the neighborhood associations. We are opposed to this rezoning for the sake of our children and for all of the children, families, and residents of this neighborhood. Currently, the closest store selling alcohol is more than a half a mile away at the Walgreens. However, if rezoning is granted, the Menlo Park grocery store would bring alcohol within 600 feet of our campus, and our transitional living students who are between the ages of 18 and 21 and living by themselves in the duplexes across from our main campus. We are opposed to allowing this rezoning even if stipulations are added. The City Council cannot govern the beer board, who would ultimately approve and retract a beer license. Even a limit on hours of operation would not prevent the occurrence of deviant activity. Mr. Daniels himself is a fine citizen. We are not questioning his ability to maintain his store and to make sure that persons over 21 are allowed to purchase alcohol. Instead, we are concerned with the type of foot traffic that would come down our street, as well as the crime that it would bring to the neighborhood. Countless studies have shown that crime increases with increased alcohol sales, and I will quote just a few of those for you. You have those references on your paper. A study by the National Institute of Justice states that off-premise outlets like supermarkets and convenience stores have a positive relationship to domestic violence calls for service. And this relationship holds strong during weekend and weeknight periods. Indiana University says more alcohol sales sites in a neighborhood equates with more violence, and the highest assault rates are associated with carry-out sites selling alcohol for off-premise consumption. The researchers found that adding one off-premise alcohol sales site would create 2.3 more simple assaults and 0.6 more aggravated assaults per square mile. Finally, studies have shown, this is World Health Organization, that violence can be cut by reducing the availability of alcohol through regulating sales outlets and hours and prices, by providing brief interventions and longer-term treatment of problem drinkers, and by improving the management of environments in which alcohol is served. And we believe that you, as a city council, can do just that to regulate the environment and prevent alcohol sales in our neighborhood. One person stands to benefit from this rezoning, but an entire neighborhood stands to be harmed. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gregory Hall. I am the newest resident to the community at 500 Gillespie. I reside adjacent to the Medland Park store. When my wife and I were moving to this location, this community, we made sure we checked the yellow zone and the red zone prior to moving to this location. Very questionable now, and we really doubt the safety of our livelihood with the alcohol being sold. I currently resigned from my old job. I was a store manager, retail store manager with Family Dollar, who's preparing to sell alcohol. The stuff that I endured every day, I would not tolerate with alcohol, is why I resigned. I've been held at gunpoint with an AK-47, 357, and I'm still here today. And let you know, I reside military. Did not give my life on the line to come back and be held at gunpoint by someone who's intoxicated or under the consumption of alcohol. And I just want you to know I'm not with the alcohol consumption of the C2 zoning. Thank you.
Evening, Councilman. I'm Ezra Harris, and I'm the outgoing chairman of the North Branch Community Council. And of course, I do stand here in opposition, and one of the reasons why, because I'm concerned with the impact that it will have for the children's chambers, children's home, and also, across the street, they have transitional housing. I'm mainly concerned for them and mainly concerned for the community. I oppose it. Mr. Daniels is a good man. We don't have anything against him. It's just that we oppose the zoning. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Council. I'm Reverend Whiteside, and I have property right in the front of the store and across behind it on Biltmore Drive. I'm against alcohol being sold. I have nothing against Mr. Daniel himself, but he was talking about years ago when they were selling alcohol there. A young man graduated out of high school right there on that corner in the front of that store where he killed a man right there, and he's just getting out of prison now for that. That's when alcohol was being sold right there. Back in July, the SWAT team came down there for drugs across the street. So I'm thinking if you bring alcohol back in there, it's going to increase the problems in our neighborhood, and I'm totally against that. Nothing against him. I'm against alcohol. Thank you.
Ma'am, you have 1 minute, and we will give you an additional 1 minute should you choose in rebuttal.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Sonia Goss, and I'm an educator who works with high-priority schools in the Brainerd community. I live where I work, and I set an example for the children and teachers daily. I work hard at my job. It's very challenging to work in urban schools. The scripture says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. I am very blessed that I had a father who was able to leave me a home. I'm desperately fighting to protect this investment, not just for myself, but for my own children. And as I said before, I work long hours every day, and I like to come home to my home. It's peaceful, it's quiet, and I want to maintain my property value, and I want safety in my neighborhood. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Okay, sir, you have 3 minutes. Set him for 3 minutes. That way, everything is equitable to give us a final response.
All right. I'm sympathetic to opposition. I really am. But this crime that they're talking about that's going on is actually doesn't have anything to do with beer sales with the store at the present time. If one of the opposition's scares is that I might sell to the children from the children's home, I would like to at least get a list of the kids that's in the program and to make certain that I wouldn't sell to any of their kids. I'm willing to work with them on that one. And if we can also, just one cooler, I just need one cooler to assure that it wouldn't be a beer store. I'm not trying to make it a beer store, I just need the commodity. So just like Ms. Sears passed the torch on and she left a legacy, I'm trying to build my own legacy. I'm also trying to hand down this building and the business to my child one day. And I will be responsible enough to not sell to any minors. And I will assure that if I'm granted the C2 zoning. Here is Mr. Thomas. He actually lives right next door to the building, and he would like to speak and say something.
How y'all doing? I'll be next door to, my mother been living there for a long time. And she never had no problem when Miss Sears had the beer. There wasn't nobody outside drinking beer or no disturbance. And I just want to say, try to give a young man a good chance to work out his store. I think that's going to help his store just a little bit to stay in business. So I appreciate y'all giving to him. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, sir. Councilwoman Kumrai. Well, let me get Councilman Ledford, and then we're going to close up. So Councilman Ledford, if you please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is a mechanical one, zoning for Mr. Bridger.
Yes,
We've
sir.
looked at the parking requirements for C2 and they've been met.
I have not investigated that. The question of approving the zoning would not, they have to comply with the C2, I think it's like, I want to say it's 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. So it's an existing store, it's already operating in a C5. So changing it to C2, I don't, as far
It's
as.
not going to change our parking requirements? That should have rephrased the question.
Yeah.
Doesn't change.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councilwoman Kumrai.
Thank you, Chair. This decision, really was a hard decision. I try to be fair to everybody. And, homeowners matter, but renters matter as well, too, in the community. So I have to have, be partial to both sides and hear their complaints or their concerns, whether if it's positive or negative. And the thing that I had the opportunity to do was to also go knock on doors in the community to ask, what would the community like to see? Are they against it? Are they for it? And what I found is that there were more people that were for it than against it. Now, is it fair for me not to include renters? That wouldn't be fair because they're voters as well. So we have to consider those voices as well, too. I hear the concerns from the North Brainerd Council. I also hear the concerns from the Chamberlain's home. But my thing is that all the issues that's surrounding the store in the chambers, that not one person mentioned those issues that could hinder the kids, the youth, the 18-year-olds that's in the transitional houses from the chamber site. They can have free access to walk out of their door and walk into the 4 drug houses that's in the vicinity to purchase crack cocaine, heroin. They can purchase cocaine. They can purchase marijuana. Those things they have access to that nobody is saying, let me see your identification. Nobody is checking to see if they're of age or any of these things. They have the opportunity to illegally use drugs that is not legal. And we're talking about the sale of beer that we're not even in the prohibition era anymore. It's legal to sell beer. There's been no record to say that anybody from the children's home that have resided there has actually had the opportunity to give somebody the opportunity, an adult, to purchase alcohol from the store when it was selling beer. Not one incident. There's been no incident on record to say that Miss Sears' store, the former owner, than the times before that there were any incidents of them selling to a minor or having an adult to come in and purchase alcohol for a minor. Now, is it fair for the establishment to be held accountable if somebody, an adult, takes it upon themselves to buy a minor some alcohol? That's not the responsibility of the business owner. That has to do with the integrity of the person that's buying the alcohol for the minor. They shouldn't be drinking it anyway. And if we're that concerned about if the youth will go and purchase, are we having any programs in place for preventive to teach them or to show them about underage drinking? Any of those things in place, preventive measures, so they can easily walk to any of the stores that's in the area to purchase alcohol. So my thing is that I'm gonna make a motion to approve the alternate version with conditions.
Okay. And are the conditions of record?
John, can you reread those conditions, please? And then before you read those, I just want to bring it full circle around to where we govern zoning. It's a zoning matter. The beer board handle if you're gonna get a beer permit or any of those things. So today, if you will read those
Sure.
conditions.
Use is limited to convenience store and related beer and alcohol sales for off-site consumption only. Retention of the existing building is the second condition. Third is no beer or alcohol sales permitted after 9:00 p.m. Fourth condition is no detached or pole-mounted signs permitted. And the fifth condition is dumpster pickup shall be limited to the hours between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m.
And then also, just for the record, with the research about that alcohol and has increased domestic violence in this community, there's been not one call for domestic violence that's related to alcohol sales. And a lot of times that we put things on our community because we say, well, it's a poor community, it's a predominantly black community, or all the negative things that we have to say when it comes to this community, and we have to stop that. We need to be more supportive of our African-American business owners. Here it is, the city council and our mayor is working diligently, creating paths for upward mobility for our minority business owners and black men. And that's a path for them to be able to take care of their families. And those things, this man gives back to his community 100%. I've seen it. Anything that he can help with this community, he's always hands-on. Nothing bad has occurred at this location. And the sad thing about it is that one of the people who got up to speak, and this is what's very sad and heartbreaking to me, is that your rental property is one of the houses that's selling drugs and destroying our communities. But we're supposed to be accepting of that. It's unacceptable at this point. If we're gonna champion the fight to be against one particular thing that's not illegal, we need to start championing the right fights of the things that's wrong in the community. And again, I move to approve with the conditions.
We have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. Any further questions? All in favor by the sign of aye? Opposers, nay? Let's do a roll call. Yeah, let's start with Councilman Burris.
Burris. Byrd. Coonrod.
Yes.
Gilbert.
No.
Henderson.
No.
Ledford. Mitchell. Smith. Oglesby.
Yes.
It's 5 yes.
5 yes. 5-4? Okay. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, let's move on now to resolutions. 7A.
A resolution authorizing acceptance of the fee simple conveyance from Cameron Riverfront Land LLC to the city of Chattanooga of a 2.173 acre portion of tax map number 135NA004, further identified in the form attached as city parcel on barge project 3565807 at an appraised value of $140,000.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We have Councilman Smith, followed by Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is in your district, and with your favor, I'd like to move approval.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye? Aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. 7B.
A A resolution authorizing the Director of Wireless Communications to enter into a 3-year service agreement with Motorola Solutions Asset Management for $42,394 per year for a total amount of $127,152 for the full term of the contract.
Councilman Smith? Okay, and seconded. Okay, any further questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. 7C.
A resolution to confirm the mayor's appointments of Miguel Morales, David Higney, and Ann Pierre to the Wastewater Regulations and Appeals Board.
Councilman Ledford? It's moved and properly seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. D, please.
A resolution approving a special exceptions permit for an existing liquor store, change in ownership located at 6401 Hickson Pike, Suite A.
Councilman Smith, followed by Councilman Ledford. Moved and properly seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries. E, please.
A resolution approving a special exceptions permit for a residential plan unit development for properties located at 8024, 8104, 8108, and 8202 Shallowford Road, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Ledford, followed by Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I did speak with the developer. I'd like to ask for a 2-week deferral till January 7th.
Okay. It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye. Opposers, nay. Motion carries until January the 7th. That concludes this portion of our council meeting. We now will move on to purchases.
Good evening, council. We have a few items, purchase items for your consideration. The first two coming from our Information Technology Department, the first being a new blanket contract for computer technology, equipment, and supplies being awarded to CDW Government Incorporated for a total estimated annual amount of $5 million. Second item being a new blanket contract, cellular devices, services, and business solutions being awarded to Verizon Wireless for a total estimated annual amount of $900,000. The next item from the Head Start Centers of our Department of Youth and Family Development, blanket contract renewal for fresh produce being awarded to T&T Produce Company for a total estimated annual amount of $263,000. The next item from Traffic Operations Division of the Department of Transportation, a new blanket contract for intersection loop replacement being awarded to NAPCO Electric Company Incorporated for a total estimated annual amount of $54,000. Also from the Traffic Operations Division, a blanket contract renewal for Perform Speed Suctions being awarded to Traffic Logic Corporation for a total estimated annual amount of $201,000. And the last item from the Parks Division of Public Works, a blanket contract renewal for golf carts being awarded to EZ Go Testron for a total estimated annual amount of $75,441.
Councilman Ledford? Oh, hit the button again, sorry. There you go, you got the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I get a line item breakdown on item 1? I'm just kidding, Tony. Move to approve.
Thank you so much. I was prepared.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve, and we have a seconded. Any questions? All in favor by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Motion carries. Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Is there any other business the council would like to share this evening? Seeing none, We'll move on to, well, forgot. Getting late. Oh, okay. Light, brother, light.
It's on.
Okay, you got it, Councilman Byrd.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say the other day, yesterday, we had an amazing meeting here, Policy Pitch Night. The Urban Policy Institute sponsored it along with UTC, and it was amazing to see the UTC students, the information and research that they gathered about violence in a lot of the communities that are in Chattanooga. And we just received a lot of great information, and I just want to salute Dennis Clark for putting that together along with UTC and Professor Acuff and all the students. You all did a wonderful job, and we got a lot of great information from you guys, and it was just on the break of us receiving notification that we had 2 murders just the night before in one shot, and we just have to do something to try to do the best we can to fix our communities, not really fix, but help our communities. And I think this was a great path to start, and I look to see more from the Urban Policy Institute. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Byrd. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you. Just want to invite the community out to our second date of our Community Resource Fair that's going to be held at the Eastdale Youth and Family Development Center on Thursday from 10 until noon. Invite your neighbors, your friends. Again, if you had the opportunity to bring 10 canned goods, you had the opportunity to enter to a raffle to win $50. And then if you pack your car, bring at least 10 people full or more, you had the opportunity to get entered to a raffle for $100. So we're excited, all the people that's going to be attending. We've got some great things that's in store for you. And then the other thing I wanted to just make everyone aware of, on Friday, December the 13th at 2 o'clock, my daughter, Alexis Nolan, will be graduating from Austin Peay University. Her major is in criminal justice, and she's graduating with a 4.0.
Excellent. Excellent job, Mother. Okay. We've just dealt with the matter of C&J's Liquor.
Yes, sir. It's going to be at 6401 Hickson Pike, Suite A. It's Jai Meldamade and CJ's Liquor, and they've passed all the certification for that location, and you've approved the special exceptions this evening.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, sir.
I will move on to committee reports. Councilwoman Byrd. No reports. Councilman Byrd. No report. Councilwoman Coonrod. No report. Councilman Gilbert. No report. Councilman Ledford. No report. Councilman Smith. No report. Great. That concludes this part. We would now move on to recognitions of persons wishing to address the council. Mr. Nobbit, would you please read the rules?
Yes, sir. Your new rules as of last meeting are, at the end of each council business meeting, the chair will recognize members of the public that wish to address the council. Here are your rules. Come up front here. You can only be recognized at the microphone provided for that purpose up front. No person can have more than 3 minutes to speak. The speaker may address the council only upon matters within their legislative and quasi-judicial authority, and the speaker cannot address the council on matters which are not under their authority or are regulated by other governmental bodies or agencies. The speaker can't use any vulgar or obscene language nor use the floor to personally attack or personally denigrate others. Speaker should address the council as a whole, not make comments directed towards individual council members. And you can only speak once during a council day, either during the agenda session or at a committee meeting or at the council business meeting. And the chair will not permit disorderly conduct or disrupting a public meeting, which is prohibited by Tennessee law. And a person would commit an offense if the person substantially obstructs or interferes with the meeting by physical action or verbal utterance with the intent to prevent or disrupt the meeting. Come on up if you got to talk.
How you doing, councilman and council ladies? I'm Sylvester Harris, East Chattanooga, 3300 Curtis Street. Yes, earlier today I was seeing that a lot of contractors was in here. A lot of people are gone now, and I hate that because I wanted to speak to them on the behalf of sometime when some of their projects fall through, you know, consider East Chattanooga. And I was hoping that our council that would, when they see a lot of times that it don't work out in their district, to, you know, recommend them out there to Mr. Byrd and Ms. Coonrod. I talked to one of the contractors. I ran him down outside. I said, sir, could I just please speak to you? I said, I see you're a little disappointed about what happened earlier today, but I said, East Chattanooga have a lot of flat land and a lot of areas that we can build on. Have you ever considered that? And he told me that he knew about East Chattanooga, and he would like to, you know, talk to Ms. Coonrod, you know, and he had been talking to her about that. So hopefully something can work out, because we have 14 acres still left at the Herrick Tubman site that needs to be developed. And hopefully, you know, I'm sorry that all the contractors is gone when I could plead my bid that for them to come out that way and look out, because I look at like East Chattanooga as a diamond in the rough. It just needs to be polished a little bit. Come out there and get out there and see what we got and make it happen, because I think a lot of people is overseeing a landmine of money that they can make. I think they look at the bigger picture when they see these other sites and think about all the wealth that they could make. But I think one day if they look at East Chattanooga and one day be one of the first to stand up and try to bring it out our way. And another thing I want to talk about is a friend of mine called me. She works at a retirement home, and she let me know that her heart is broken because a lot of seniors are looking for housing, affordable housing. This income is probably under $1,000 a month, but they can't afford to live out in the regular life because their income is so low and affordable, you know, fixed income. So let's see if we can find ways to try to find, and I told her I would bring her down here because there was some good people down here would listen to her and let her tell her story about it. But seniors need affordable housing. And I'm talking about all over Chattanooga, because once we get a certain age, you know, our incomes change. You know, I know when I retired, things changed. You know, it wasn't that extra overtime. It wasn't that extra money that I had to throw out you fixed on the income. And when you hear people say that, once you join that, you understand that. So if we can open our eyes to these seniors that needs affordable housing, good affordable housing, you know, if you can, open your eyes up. But I hope all the council can join together as a group when it comes to Chattanooga and East Chattanooga and all the communities, and let's make it happen together. Thanks for your time and your patience. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bernard Shepard. I live in Mr. Oglesby district. I made a video about my product, and it'll put Chattanooga on the map again. This has a great deal of potential. There are some videos on here, but one in particular shows what I'm doing and what my business is about. It's about 3 minutes long. And she suggested I ask them. They suggested I tell you what it was. And it's no copywritten. I mean, it's copywritten stuff on it, and it's not anything lewd or things such as that. So I just wanted to show you what it is. It's about, I have a copyright on the name of the product. It's called a 3D Smart Cushion. And I own a URL, which is a web address. It's not up on the web address as the trucker cushion, but that's what it is. I had a mentor here in Chattanooga that helped me get it started, but we had some difficulties in some of the things. To his credit, he helped me get a presentation with Dr. Stephen Sprignell at Georgia Tech Bioengineering and Ergonomics Department, and he approved our survey, and we did a 25 trucker survey with Southern Champion Trey, a trucking company that serves the United States with concession trays and such for French fries, and the truckers, 67% of it said it made them feel more alert, this product here. So we designed it because I was a trucker, and my seat didn't work for me, air bladders, none of that stuff. This works. I got people who stop using it and their back start hurting. They put it back behind them and they feel comfortable again. 67% of those truckers said it made them feel more alert. That's because it addresses your posture, simply addresses your posture. If you watch some of the things that were on, I got 2 more minutes. If you watch some of the things that were on Congress.
34 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Congressman Collins of Georgia, he complained about the temperature in the room of Congress, and he had complained about his chair. If he used this product, he wouldn't be complaining about his chair. It doesn't eliminate any chairs. It improves all of them, all seats and chairs. Thank you. So I'm asking your permission to show us 2 minutes.
Sir, our limit is 3 minutes, but I'll be happy to get with you after this thing, and you and I can get together at some point in time. I would love to be able to see it.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Okay, great, thank you, sir.
Can I present you my card?
Absolutely, you can give each of us a card. We love to
I
have
don't
it.
have as many.
All right, you know what? I'll see that they get your information.
Thank you.
Be happy to do that. Is there anybody else that would like to address the council at this time? Hearing none, we are adjourned.